Bruce and Paul were Irish twins. That meant they're the same age for 2 weeks. Bruce's birthday's tomorrow. Paul's is in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later is mine. So Paul and I are also Irish twins. Paul was the same age as me for 2 weeks. And he never let me forget that. And every year he'd say, "You can't tell me what to do, I'm the same age you are." And what came pretty evident pretty quick was very few people could tell Paul what to do. And in fact, when he started kindergarten, his teacher called our mom and said, "I've been teaching 15 years. This is the first one to escape." Paul was gone. There was, Mom and Dad also used to go out every Friday night, payday. They went out for dinner. Now it's called date night. But as soon as Anne turned, I think she was like 11 and I was 10, we were the babysitters. We could take care of the rest of the kids. So that was Paul, Bruce, Donna, and Bart. And we could corral them pretty good. But Dad said, "I don't care what time anybody goes to bed, but when we get home, I want everyone in their own bed if they're sleeping." So that was great, except for Paul. Paul wanted to stay up and watch TV, and we couldn't tell him what to do. So he would, and he'd often fall asleep on the floor watching TV. And knowing that rule about everybody's supposed to be in their bed, Anne would say, "You sit on him, I'll wake him up." Because he would come up swinging, and I would be dumb enough to sit on him. But once he calmed down, and really woke up, I could get up. He'd go to bed, we got paid. It was great. Another memory with Paul especially, because one year, when we were probably, I don't know, grade school age, we lived about 4 blocks from a drugstore. And my dad gave each of us, I think, $2 on Mother's Day. Go get your mom a gift. So the 4 of us walked down to the drugstore, and Anne, right away, found this wonderful gift. It was probably perfume or a bright piece of jewelry or something. But we had to combine our money with Daddy, because it was, probably $8. And Bruce was fine with it. "Yes, whatever you want, let's do it." Not Paul. "I'm getting what I want to get. Leave me out of this." And I remember at the time, Anne and I both being very indignant, thinking, "What do we do with this stubborn kid?" But now I think he had his eye on something he wanted to get her. And by God, that's what he was going to get her. So he did. He also, years later, used to call Mom during Wheel of Fortune and say, "Did you get the entry?" And then, of course, there's Bruce. Bruce was only 2 years younger than me. But I do remember calling him my little Brucey boy. He was my little Brucey boy. And he wasn't that much younger than me, but I do remember one time, he must have been like 3 or 4, and I went up to lay him down for a nap. Usually I tell him a story and sing him a song. And he says, "Do you want me to tell you or read you a book?" And he's like 3. I'm like, "Yeah, read me a book." So he reaches up, gets an imaginary book, pulls it down. He said, "This is the book of stories of when I was big before I got little again." What kind of an imagination is that? And then also, Bruce's kindergarten story. He had to go to Cooper, because Cooper Elementary School had kindergarten. And the rest of us went to Catholic school, they didn't have kindergarten. So Anne and me and Paul were going to St. Albert's, and Bruce was going to kindergarten at Cooper. And it was a holy day of obligation, which means we don't have school. But Bruce did. And so I thought, "Oh, my sweet little Brucey boy, I'll walk him to kindergarten." And it's only like 4 blocks. And we're walking along, talking, it's all cool, and all of a sudden I'm going, gee, it's really too bad you gotta go to school today. You know, if you had the day off like the rest of us, we could just hang out and play all day. And we're watching and we're watching. We get to school, Bruce is like in tears. Oh, come on, I gotta go to school. His teacher came up, grabbed him by the arm, took him and told me, you go home. Okay, that guy didn't help him out. And each summer, Bruce and I would spend at least 2 weeks with your Uncle Jack on the Thompson farm. And one time in particular, one of our rich cousins came out and they had money. And somehow this guy wound up going to town. And we were going to sleep in the haymow there. Well, so Greg Doust comes back from town, bags full of candy, chips, pop, you name it. The boys on one end of the barn. And Marcia and I are on the other end of the barn. And my grandma, taking care of us, gave us, I think, Ritz crackers, the classy ones, and Kool-Aid with half a cup of sugar. So we're on the other end. And these horrible jackets, one of the ringleaders, they're eating candy chips, saying so full. I couldn't eat another thing. They're unwrapping candy bars, throwing them at the cows. Come, Bossy, come, Bossy. Yeah, couldn't drink any more pop, dump that out. It was just me, they were me. And that was the beginning of the corruption of my brother. And I could tell you other stories about that, but Jack has some. So I'm going to tap him and make him tell. And anybody else, please, who has a story?
Before God and everybody else here, I want to apologize for that. That was a bad.
Okay, I'm cousin.